Now what is the meaning of this word void? Void means null, that means there is nothing meaningful in it. Generally when we say functions, we have seen already, when the function returns a certain value, then it is said to have an integer type or a character type or a float type. But when there is no return value from the function, it is said to be of type void. So similarly in pointers, when a pointer variable's data type is known, it is simply called a pointer. But when a pointer variable's data type is not identified, it is called a void pointer. So the features of this void pointer is that it cannot be dereferenced without explicit type conversion. Dereference in the sense getting the value. So you cannot get the value of a void pointer unless you explicitly mention its type and convert the value to that particular type, because its data type is not known. The compiler cannot detect the size of the object that the pointer points to. See, when we say integer or when we say character or when we say float, each of them have a certain storage bytes allocated by the compiler. So unless the pointer is identified as pointing to an integer variable or character variable or float variable, the compiler will not be able to identify what is the size of the object to which the pointer is pointing to. And void variable declaration is not allowed. That means pointers can be void, but simply variable names cannot be void. I cannot simply give x. I have to give int x or character x or float x, but simply I can give void pointer x. So these are the main features of pointers. Void pointers are nothing but the data type of the variable that the pointer points to is not known. So we cannot dereference the value of that variable, what it is pointing to. Neither can we detect the size of the object it is pointing to. And one important feature is that only pointer variables can be void, simple variables cannot be declared as void. So we will see an example program of how void pointers are used. Now here if you see, I am having 3 variables of type integer, float and character, and I am having one pointer variable of type void, and I am assigning first the address of this integer variable to the pointer variable. So here is where I define the type of the pointer variable. Here if you see, it is void. So void star pointer variable pt. Here I am assigning the address of this integer variable p to this pointer variable pt. So here the compiler will understand that this pointer variable is pointing to an object of type integer for which I am supposed to allocate these many number of bytes. So from this itself you can understand that when a pointer variable is void, you can use that variable to hold the address of any type of general variable. It can hold the address of an integer or character or float according to the need of the situation. Now that is one advantage of void pointers. Now if you see, all these are declared before the main function. So the first 3 statements are declared outside the main function. So we have seen they are called global variables. They can be accessed throughout the program, they will be active. So after this I am declaring the main function, and inside that, now here if you see, this is only explicit type conversion. I am dereferencing this pointer variable pt and assigning a value 12 to it using this explicit type conversion. We have seen what is type conversion, explicitly defining the type of the result that we want or the type of the data type of the result that we want. The value of the variable should be displayed in this particular data type, that is only called explicit type conversion. So here integer pointer pt, that means I am going to assign a value to this pointer variable that should be explicitly of type integer. And here I have already assigned the address of an integer variable to this pt. So now the value that is being held by this pt is 12. So then I am printing the value simply p. How am I printing simply p? Pointer pt is 12 means the address of p is held by pt. So automatically this 12 will be stored in this variable p. So this is how void pointers are used. Here I am giving the keyword void, that means I am not indicating any data type. Here I am explicitly telling that this pointer pt should hold the integer value. So when I say pt should hold the integer value, automatically this integer value will be assigned to this variable p, because the address of p is only being held by this pt. Now in the next step if you see, I am doing explicit type conversion float star pt is equal to 5.4. So, here it is a float value. I am explicitly converting it to this pointer variable of type pt, and I am converting this void pointer which was so long holding an integer value to hold a float value. So, this is the use of pointers. Now, if I had not declared this to be a void pointer, I need to have had an integer pointer variable, a float pointer variable and a character pointer variable to access each of these memory locations. But here I have declared only one pointer variable and I am converting that pointer variable to a type integer, to a type float and to a type character. So, this itself I am efficiently using the memory space and the use of variable names also. Just in the last line we saw that this was used to display an integer value. Now, in the next line I am converting this pt to hold a float value and I am giving the value, and then I am printing the value d over here. Next I am making this pt hold the address of a character variable. C is the character variable that we had declared, and I am explicitly type converting this pt to character star and I am putting this s in this pt pointer variable. Then I am displaying the value of C. So, using the single pointer pt, I am making it hold values of 3 different data types. I am making it point to 3 different memory locations using the same variable name, and I am printing the values of 3 different types of variables. So, this is the use of void pointers. So, void pointers can be used to point to different types of variables at different points in the program. Because it has been globally declared, the variables will be visible throughout the lifetime of the program. So, this is the concept of void pointers. And finally, if you see, the output is displayed over here 12, 5.4 and C is equal to S. The only thing that we need to remember here is, before we explicitly type convert, we have to assign the address of that particular variable to pt. So, first we are assigned the integer address to pt, next the float address to pt, next the character address to pt. Only then we should explicitly type convert, otherwise the compiler will not understand. It will think so long it was holding an integer variable, how suddenly I can convert it to float. So, before you convert to float, you have to put ampersand d is equal to pt. Before you convert to character, you have to put ampersand c is equal to pt. So, these are points to be remembered when we are using a single void pointer to hold variables of different data types.